thank Christine, first of all, for filling in for Judy tonight, who's out of town. I was asked by my longtime Sangha in Manhasset, the old Innisfada days, to give a teisho this week, which I did last night, on psychology, or psychotherapy, and Buddhist practice, psychotherapy and practice. So I'll do that again tonight here. All the more so in that the page a day Zen calendar had a quote this morning from Kimich Chodron about the real importance of honestly facing ourselves, which we do, or should be doing, both in psychotherapy and on this cushion in our spiritual practice, honestly facing ourselves. Or as one of the therapists remarked to me last night, after the talk, she said, both are motivated by this desire to discover our true selves. Pretty good, very good. And, or as famous Cistercian abbot Mandriluf, who investigated psychotherapy and, of course, contemplative prayer, said, I don't think he invented this, but he said, both psychotherapy, psychoanalysis, and practice, contemplative prayer, are to make the unconscious conscious. So there you can see, once you understand that, you can understand how psychotherapy might need to fit into our practice. Now, I was in Syracuse 2 weeks ago, and I gave 3 talks on 3 successive days, 2 different talks. One at Lemoyne on silence and spiritual and practice. One at Syracuse U on Buddhism and Christianity, and the third for the Syracuse Zen Center on its 20th anniversary on the testimony of time. And to 2 of those talks, the first 2, I made this statement in no uncertain terms, as I'm going to do now. Again, if and to the extent that you are going to engage in deep spiritual practice, you must have psychotherapy. And of course, everybody was startled. Except the Roshi of the Syracuse Zen Center, who was nodding vigorously when I made that comment. So much so that one of the older Jesuits, I was staying with the Jesuits in Lemoyne, told me the following day, he said, wonderful guy, he said he really liked my talk, but he said, one possible criticism I might have is that maybe when you say that, you could tone it down a little and say, well, yeah, I said, maybe I could say, but, if you're going to engage in spiritual practice, it might be a good idea to consider having, a psychotherapy at the same time. But no, I say it a little more. I say it more strongly than that. Very early on in my spiritual practice, I just in the monastery and even in the Jesuits, I discovered that not only in myself, but what I could see around me, that people were stuck and blocked pretty early on in their spiritual practice, to the extent they might almost give it up, by psychological issues. Now, Richard Rohr says a number of times, with insightful wisdom, that all problems are psychological, but all solutions are spiritual. Okay, now that's in the general picture true. Nonetheless, as one young retreat said at the monastery when I was there in England, he wrote a paper after he was on retreat and said, Buddhism is not psychotherapy. Yes, that's right. So, spiritual practice is not a substitute for psychotherapy, even though solutions are spiritual. So, your practice can begin to give you insight, show you where you need to go, why you need psychotherapy. It can give you the energy, the confidence to do it. It can come from your psychotherapy. I mean, it can be a fruit of it. And as one person was telling me in a conversation just today, just before I got here, as a matter of fact, how his spiritual practice, his Buddhist practice, has helped him to face some of his issues. So, to a certain extent and at a certain level, that's all very, very true. So, I mean, they do work together. But especially for the larger stuff, emotional issues have to be faced emotionally, on their own turf. In other words, usually with a counselor or a therapist, to bounce it off. And when you see what the issues are, as I saw in so many, and in myself as well to a certain extent, and they're often pretty primitive. That they are Freudian child issues and shadow work, to use the term of Carl Jung, that need to be addressed, on their own terms, which can be an obstacle then to the spiritual life. Full disclosure, in my own case, towards the end of my monastic life, although I wanted to do it earlier, I was allowed to take 1.5 years of psychotherapy. You might be saying, well, we needed more than that, but which was very fruitful because I was ready, and because my therapist had himself been, he was, I think in his late 30s, but he had been a Franciscan novice for a while, so he knew, the spiritual life. But he was an excellent therapist, and and I was able to work through some of these precise things that I just mentioned, in my own life. And when you think about, maybe you can approach it this way, when you think about what the goal of practice is, say in Zen terms, enlightenment experience enables you to realize, to experience, to realize in that full sense, your unity with everything, with the whole energy of the whole universe, with everyone and everything of all times and all places. That we're all interconnected. Time vanishes, space vanishes, it's all one. Well, can you imagine that might require a lot of your psyche to be able to actually experience that? To use the image that I used in my first talk in Syracuse, you've got to go down into the cave, into where all the dragons are, and the dragons are pretty powerful and unruly, but they're ultimately you. So all that energy has to be integrated and harmonized and digested and directed. But how easy it is for that energy to get blocked. I've met a number of people over the years who really didn't seem to make progress in their practice because they couldn't let go. They couldn't surrender, they couldn't trust, they couldn't leap into that abyss of energy. They couldn't meet the dragon. They couldn't because whatever it was the issue, not learning to trust life because of their parents or whatever it was. And they just didn't make progress. One man came up to me after the first talk, an older man, and said, well, I've not had psychotherapy, and I've been practicing, for 40 years, and I'm pretty good. And I said, well, I can't tell. You say. He says, well, there's there's trauma there, and it comes up in my practice. I said, well, how long has it been coming up in your practice? He says, 40 years. Which is my point. QED. If it just keeps coming up and coming up and coming up, and you're stuck. It would seem. So fear, a lack of trust, any kind of obsessive compulsive, all that stuff needs to be looked at because it will be an obstacle to that experience of fullness. So that's the first point I want to make, and two other points which take a little less time here, and I want to open it up. There's another aspect, and I think this is what Roshi Shingo was reacting to, because that Zendo up there that is from the Edo Roshi lineage. You're probably all aware, or you should be, that a lot of people in our own lineage and in our, in the spiritual practice in the West, have had teachers, some from the East, but not all, some right from our American soil, who have had genuine, maybe because they had strong ego to begin with, I would guess, but they have had genuine, expansive Satori experiences. But it led to what can only be characterized by Jung as ego inflation, megalomania, the type of guru that becomes the center of the universe, you know, including his own universe. I'm not quite sure how and why that happens, but it does. So that's the other danger. Why you need to have some kind of psychotherapy to prevent narcissistic, you know, egotistical kind of fixation, which look around the presidential campaign. So it's really important. And you know, and you can imagine how this can happen, because if you have an experience that I just described, whereby you're one with the whole universe, and you are the whole universe, and you're one with everybody, well then I can have whatever whooping I want, because I'm already one with everybody. So why not? But there's lots of good reasons why not, which a good psychotherapy would bring to your attention. And I've come to believe over the years that in addition to all that, to practice and for your psychoanalysis, you need to have a good old plain old ethics, a good moral philosophy to guide your life. In addition, it seems, so as to avoid all the pitfalls. And third, an equally important point, there's a certain level and extent to, as I've been explaining, to which psychological issues are block spiritual practice. But in the end, your psychological wounds foster spiritual practice and help spiritual practice. Because let's face it, we're never cured of our wounds and our traumas, you know, as if they disappear. Nor should they, because they become the vehicle for your enlightenment. Richard Rohr speaks about sacred wounds. Your wounds become sacred, like the wounds of Christ, in the resurrected Christ. He retains the wounds. Or to use the great anthem of Leonard Cohen, who says, "There's a crack in everything, and that's how the light gets in." It's so true. And the cracks in our being, you know, the wounds, once they've been embraced and addressed, you know, become the way the light gets in. I'll explain why in a second. But the reason is that they've been embraced with compassion. You've poured the oil of understanding and love and compassion on them, or your therapist has, or God has. These are wounds that you've discovered and accepted and integrated. The dragon's been integrated. And one good sign that you're doing your soul work, or that you've done your soul work, is that you have buckets and buckets of tears. If you don't weep copiously, you haven't done your soul work. But that's part of the baptism. That's part of the balm of, you know, the water that cleanses, the water that soothes, called the Holy Spirit. It's that process which enables, you know, the wounds to be dressed, addressed, and dressed, so that they can become vehicles of transformation. And you can see this, why this is so better, when you realize that this basic energy of the universe with which you become one is, as you discover, compassion and love. Buddhism and Christianity say the same thing. It's compassion. So how can your wounds that you've wept over not become the vehicle of light that allow you to weep over and heal the wounds of everybody else? Who's you? So that's a good sign that you've done all the work, spiritual and psychological, when your wounds become translucent, help you to become. So those are different aspects of how these tools, how these skillful means of different types can work together, or should work together, to bring about the wholeness that we ultimately are. So I do want to, we have some time for